Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's CJ. You're watching CJ. Today I'm going to be doing the life stories book tag. My gal Hannah at Let's Talk About Books Baby, aka Queen of Memoir, tagged me to do it. So what she says, I follow. You know what I mean? This is all about memoirs, autofiction, the telling of one's story. Great tag. All right, let's get into it. Number one, do you have a preference for biography or autobiography? Definitely autobiography. I don't think I've read any biographies. I want to read the Susan Sontag one, which is like 800 pages long, so I've been putting it off. But that's the only instance of a biography I can think that would be fun to read because I love Susan Sontag so much, and only that. I've read like the Bruce Springsteen autobiography. I think he called that an autobiography rather than a memoir, and a couple other celebrity ones, but I think it's always more interesting to hear from someone's perspective if they write it themselves, if they're still alive and able to. So that would definitely be my preference there. Number two, do you gravitate towards a specific area like sports, celebrity, history, etc.? I like a little bit of celebrity memoir, not like Jessica Simpson or like, which actually I heard that book was good. My coworker told me she really liked her memoir and said it was really good. Or like Patti Smith and Just Kids and the Bruce Springsteen one. I love Bruce Springsteen. I grew up traveling the East Coast a lot, so very centric around Springsteen, Bruce, Jersey culture. So he's a very special place in my heart. Dancing in the Dark, Bruce Springsteen is my go-to karaoke song, just so you know that about me. And I smash it every time. I'm saying yes, I think they're celebrities, but more like, you know, well, I guess Bruce Springsteen is probably as big of a music celebrity you can do, but like more like the Patti Smith, like art memoir vibes is what I would say I go for the most. Number three, have you ever read the life story of someone and in doing so changed your opinion of them for better or worse? Example. Change my opinion of them. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't read about a lot of controversial figures. One that I think would be interesting to read if there is a good biography would be about Michael Jackson. Obviously a horrific child predator and accused of a bunch of sexual assault, gross crimes, but also like a cornerstone of my childhood and such a big soundtrack throughout my house, and is related to a lot of like really happy memories for me, and just like as a human being probably the most culturally interesting case study of celebrity and fame and success and like parental control. Anyways, it's not a Michael Jackson video. What was I saying? Yeah, I would read the Michael Jackson, if there was a Michael Jackson biography, I would read it and probably agree with how abhorrent he is even more so. I haven't watched Finding Neverland. I hear that that really puts a stake in the heart to anyone who has, you know, Michael Jackson as part of their cultural lexicon too, and I just don't know if I'm ready to go there yet. Number four, must you always know who the person is before picking up their life story? Not at all. Not at all, I would say. My favorite book of all time, I think, I mean, I say this because it's easy to, is Vanishing Twins by Leah Dietrich. Never heard of her before I read that book. Normal person who's a writer, didn't know who she was before, and it's my favorite book of all time. So that shows you that it doesn't need to be someone I know of. A few other examples of that are probably like The Glass Castle by Jeanette Wilson. I love that memoir. I think it's so good. If you had any sort of dysfunctional or traumatic childhood in any kind of like unstable, crazy way, definitely read that book. You might be able to relate. Also, just another person who's a writer who's telling their story that I really loved it. So no, I do not need to know them. Have you ever met someone whose biography / autobiography you've read? So I just talked about Leah Dietrich's Vanishing Twins. I saw her in a restaurant in Portland once and I was too afraid to go say hi because she was with her family, but I like recognized her because I was like stalking her on Twitter right after I finished the book, and then she appeared in real life and it was too scary and I had to not speak to her. I actually have had a weird amount of celebrity encounters in my life. I don't know why that is. None of them have been super meaningful, but I have like interfaced with celebrities before. Like a couple examples I can think of are Stevie Nicks. My mom is in AA and she would go to the Betty Ford Center like alumni dinner every year, and they usually have celebrity speakers there who are in recovery. And I saw Stevie Nicks in the bathroom. I was like 14, 15, and she said she liked my hair. It was a very defining moment for me in my life. I would definitely read a biography of hers. I wonder if she has one already. She probably does. I met Steven Tyler and Liv Tyler also at the Betty Ford Center. So basically, alcoholism leads you to meeting celebrities is what I'm figuring out in this pattern. Yeah, like Robin Williams, I saw him at the Betty Ford Center before he died. All of my celebrity encounters are at the Betty Ford Center. What do you think about books that are described as semi-autobiographical? Love it. Love it. If I was ever going to write a book, it would probably definitely be autofiction. Some of it would have to be based in reality, because who better to tell your story than you, baby? I mean, that sounds so corny and trite, but it's true. I think people who are writing from their lived and life experience can tell it better than anybody else, and it's super earnest and interesting and vulnerable and compelling when people are able to do that in an interesting way. I feel like a lot of the fiction I read is semi-autobiographical or autofiction-esque, and a lot of it doesn't have to do with any big plot. It's just like a person in their circumstances moving through the world, right? So I'm into it. Give an example of a life story that really surprised you. Let me look at the books I've read. I mean, Jeanette Wilson's The Glass Castle, her early childhood, her interfacing with her parents as they were experiencing houselessness when they grew older, and like running into them on the street, that was so cinematic and almost like movie-esque. It was surprising of how wild that was. So I would say that one. One of Deborah Levy's novels in her Living Autobiography series, the first one, where she talks about her early childhood in South Africa and her father being like a warden of the state and being arrested by the government for political implications. That was pretty surprising. What biographies, autobiographies, memoirs are currently on your TBR? Great question. I want to read Know My Name by Chanel Miller. It's a recount of the sexual assault she survived at the hands of the Stanford swimmer. Why do I want to say Brockhampton? Is that a music artist? Whatever, we don't even care about his name. The assault she survived, I hear it's really good. My friend Hannah keeps recommending it to me. I also want to read Hunger by Roxane Gay. That's her memoir. It's a account of, I think, sexual assault again, and her relationship to her body, living in a larger body, her relationship to like fatness and eating at large, which sounds really interesting. I want to read that Susan Sontag novel I mentioned earlier. I think that might be good on audio if I'm like doing data entry. I don't know why I went that specific, but I think that sounds fun. I want to read the Fran Lebowitz Reader. I recently watched Pretend It's the City on HBO and I loved it. Or was it on Netflix? Whatever. And I want to read more of her writing, and I think that is about her work from her own point of view. I want to read Stray by Stephanie Danler. I hear that's a really good exploration of addiction. I think her parents suffer from addiction in that book, and she's really candid about it. Golem Girl, a memoir. I actually just got a release from my library saying that my hold was ready for that book, so that's exciting. I'm sure there's a bunch more. I keep scrolling on my phone looking at my Goodreads to read account, but I would say it's probably at least 25% of my TBR are autofiction, semi-autobiographical, memoirs, whatever, right? Whose life story did you find particularly hard going, either emotionally difficult to read or very boring? So last year during the Booker Prize, I tried to read Who They Was by Gabrielle something, and I had to DNF it pretty immediately. It was so colloquial in like British slang that I could not assess the writing. I felt like it was so regional, so specific to where he was coming from. I wouldn't say that was like hard, emotionally difficult to read or boring. It was just inaccessible to me, which is unfortunate. I hear it's way better and easier to retain on audio, so I'm interested in giving that a try and seeing if that changes anything. Number 10, is there anyone you know who you feel should have their life story written down? My dad. Actually, like every single person in my family could have their own memoir and I would read it. My dad's one of 12 children, grew up very poor, has one of 12 children. Everyone in his family's first or middle name starts with the letter J, so like big Colt Duggar family vibes there, am I right? From the East Coast, his dad worked for the government in the 50s in New Mexico, and they like grew up near Area 51 and have like alien memories from when they're little kids. And then from there, my dad joined the carnival, has worked for the carnival for 50 years. All of his family joined the carnival, and there's so much madness that I could recount about what that kind of, you know, vagabond, fluid, never in one spot for more than 2 weeks lifestyle accounts for. He is the king of a crazy story. He is definitely more than a cat and has at least 20 lives. Had 3 wives, all named Cindy. I mean, just weird shit after one of another. So I would say my dad. Number 11, have you read any diaries or collection of letters? If so, which ones did you find interesting? I actually used to really be into this when I was younger. Like, I feel like there was a time period in the early 2000s where a lot of YA was structured as letters, like the girl writing to her diary. I think this is probably because of maybe like Anne Frank influences. I also was obsessed with Anne Frank when I was little, which sounds like a really weird thing to be obsessed with, and it was. I read The Diary of Anne Frank countless times. I made my mom rent every like biopic about the Holocaust from Blockbuster that I could get my hands on, and it just like fascinated me at way too young of an age. So anything to do with like letter writing, I was really into that when I was younger, I would say. Right now, a book that I'm thinking of that I just picked up is Theft by Finding by David Sedaris. He has a really extensive journaling writing practice that he pulls from and references a lot in his stories. So that is a recent addition to my library that I'm hoping to get into and get back into the letter writing vibe. I wish I was a journaler. I really do. I have fits of journaling. Sometimes I'll go on like a 2-month streak where I wake up every day and journal, and I do feel like it is better for my brain, and it'll be a fascinating thing to have when I'm older. I'm such like an archivist in general, but usually with photos. Like, I'm such a hoarder of pictures. I am obsessed with my family pictures. I want to like scan all of them to make sure I have them for eternity. And I'm surprised that that doesn't completely relate to journaling. Mom was a big journaler when I was growing up. I wonder if she still is. It was more linked to her sobriety practice and like gratitude list, but she at least was like in the practice of doing it every day. So I wish I was a journaler. What are a few life story books you would recommend to us? That's the last question. Vanishing Twins by Leah Deirdrick. Queer representation. Malaise about capitalism. An artist trying to find their medium and their voice. Lots of exploration around gender roles, marital expectations, finding your soulmate and still wanting to have connections with other people. A perfect book. I love it. More people need to read it. It's a publisher, Soft Skull, which is one of my favorite publishers of all time, so you can't go wrong. I would also recommend reading the Deborah Levy books. Incredible. I like the more recent one than I do the first one. I think it's Things I Don't Want to Know is the second one, which I like the most. It is recounting her relationship after her divorce and living as a single mom in London, raising her 2 teenage daughters, and what their relationship is looking like as she navigates that loss of her relationship status and her marital status, and also has to keep mothering and cultivate an artistic practice at the same time because that's her livelihood. So those are 2 kind of more steady life stories that I would recommend. And that's it. That's all the questions. I'm gonna tag Rebecca from Rebecca Eats Books, Iggy from Literary Iggy, and Ben Green, the Book Hotties Jr., if you will. I would love to see their takes on this. All of them read a lot of memoirs and semi-autobiographical novels, so it'll be interesting to get exposed to ones that I didn't just list there. Great. Hope you loved it. See you soon. Have a good day.